What is it that's holding you back, keeping you from becoming everything that God has created you to be, living your purpose and reaching your destiny? Is it self doubt, feeling that you don't measure up to others? Perhaps it's fear or lack of resources, offenses and challenges, maybe even past or current circumstances. Well, I want you to know that these are pathologies, diseases of the mind that negatively impact how you think and perceive things that invade your everyday life. You can overcome these peculiarities and become conquerors, living in the purpose that God has for your life. The Bible in Philippians 4:13 teaches us, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Hello, I'm your coach, Dee Johnson, and I'm going to share with you on how you can overcome these pathologies and be all that God created you to be on today's Watering the Seed. What's up, seeds? Welcome back to another episode of Watering the Seed, where we grow truth, we grow clarity, and we grow the kind of courage that doesn't come with expiration dates. So today, we're going there. We're going in. We're talking about fear as a prison. Not the cute kind, not the kind you can, pretty up with affirmations, but the kind of prison that keeps us walking in circles while purpose waits outside the gate, like whenever you're ready, that. We're talking about the fears we inherited, the fears we absorbed, and the fears we were conditioned into by, people who need us small. Because our confidence was a mirror they were never ready to look into. So let's water some seeds today. Let's break some chains. Now, before we get started, I just want to say this, and I mentioned this in another one of my podcasts just a couple weeks ago. And I want to explain this because I believe that it's important on how we define the word fear, because we often use the word fear as a broad, catch all for a lot of feelings: fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of loss. But fear in its truest form points to a clear and present danger. And a lot of what we experience, feelings in everyday life around, not being enough, not doing enough, being overlooked, being uncertain, or being disappointed, those aren't always fear, at least not in this sense. More often, what we're really feeling is dread or dismay, anxiety or unease. And I think it's important that we name those feelings, more accurately, because when we use better language to describe something, our feelings, we gain a better understanding of it. We become more aware of what's really happening internally. Using precise language helps us become more emotionally aware and more honest about what we're actually carrying and internalizing. It's just a more intelligent way to define what we're feeling and how we're reacting. So, with that said, let's get into it. Now, fear, or for a better understanding, let's call it dread. Dread doesn't always come with bars. Sometimes it comes dressed like, self doubt. Sometimes it sounds like, don't get too big, don't shine too bright, don't make them uncomfortable. This is what we're telling ourselves. Sometimes insecurity driven anxiety, that we want to call fear, or what we perceive as fear, it teaches us to shrink just enough so insecure people can feel, taller or more secure. And the wild thing about that, the wild thing, we call that survival. We call it loyalty. We call that keeping the peace, okay? But peace built on shrinking is not peace, not at all. It's a prison sentence. Anxiety will talk you into playing small, waiting for permission, asking people who've never walked in purpose how to step into your purpose. I mean, really? Really? But yeah, anxiety will talk you into letting insecure voices direct your destiny. Unease will have you believing that alignment is dangerous, that purpose is too much, that your gifts are too loud, and that being chosen means you should hide. Hide it, hide your gifts to keep the unchosen comfortable. See, listen, this isn't always fear in the truest sense of it, okay? It's conditioned anxiety, it's internalized unease, it's learned dread. And too many of us have been serving time we never deserved, okay? Let's talk about it. Faith without works. Let's talk about it. A lot of folks say they believe. They'll shout, God told me. But the moment it's time to move on something, the brakes come on. Instead of hitting the gas on a thing, they hit the brakes. And why? Because fear has convinced them that obedience requires approval. Faith without works is basically a spiritual vision board with no action plan. And fear is the reason many people stay stuck at the writing the goal down stage. Okay? Never stepping into the part where the blessing actually begins to manifest. Your purpose needs things, okay? It needs things. It needs two things for sure: faith and footsteps, okay? Not faith and fear, not faith and approval, not faith and apology, not faith and dread, anxiety, dismay, not that. Faith and footsteps. That means movement. Okay? Emotionally driven control and the shadow of the reality. And this part right here, you need to buckle up for, because this is where you will have to face the cause head on, accept the reality and name it so that you can begin to heal, because those emotions don't always live just inside of us. They don't just live within us. There are people who will try to manage your identity because they can't manage their own insecurities. People who operate from dismay, comparison, and internal lack, people who groom you into becoming the version of you that makes them feel less threatened, to people who need you to dim your light, your accomplishments, dummy those things down or silence you. So their mediocrity, their lack, their weak will, or them being average feels safe. They need you to dim your light so that their mediocrity feels more safe. And let me just say this, okay? Let me say this. I don't want anybody getting into their feelings about mediocrity, because there is nothing wrong with living an average life or being a minimalist, okay? I know a lot of people who enjoy that. They're very comfortable in that space. But those people don't use their insecurities, if they have any, to dummy people down. There's nothing wrong with being a minimalist. Nothing wrong at all with that. But if your choice to live that way is causing some insecurity in you and causing you to react negatively towards someone who chooses an above average lifestyle, then that's something that dwells within that needs care. It needs healing. But these behaviors are what I call the shadow reality. This is what I call a shadow reality. And let me explain this. Okay, a shadow reality is when someone convinces you to live in their fear-based world. Okay, their fear-based world. They come at you with, don't do that. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Why do you want to try that? Don't try that. That's too big of a goal. You need to aim lower so you have a better shot at it. Why are you doing that? Nobody in our family ever did that. Why do you think that way? And who do you think you are? You're making me uncomfortable. If you've ever heard any of those things, Those are what I call shadow realities. And here's the truth. Some people might say they're protecting you by doing that, by saying those things. And some may very well believe that they really are. But the truth of the matter is, that's not protection. That's projection. They're projecting their insecurities onto you. They are not protecting you. They are protecting their illusion of control over you, over your choices, over your light, over your wanting to live more than an average life. Okay, they're projecting those insecurities onto you and they're calling it protection because your growth disrupts their comfort. Your clarity exposes their confusion. Your alignment, it highlights their avoidance because they don't want to align. And instead of doing the work, they try to manage you. Because if you ever step into the fullness of who you are, who you really are, their control slips. It loses its grip. Their influence weakens. Their excuses get exposed. Their lack of growth becomes undeniable. Okay? Some people don't want you to elevate because your elevation reveals their stagnation. Your healing exposes their neglect. Your freedom highlights their captivity because they're in prisons of their own making. And instead of doing the work, they want you to sit in the shadows with them, to sit in that prison with them, to be in captivity with them. If you've ever heard the term or, the old cliche, misery loves company, that's what this is. That's exactly what that is. They want you to sit with them in captivity. Misery loves company. Seeds, hear me. You don't owe anybody your shadows. You don't owe anybody your shrinking. You don't owe anybody your confusion just because clarity intimidates them. Your clarity intimidates them. You don't owe them anything. Now, earlier I said something. I said sometimes fear doesn't just live inside of us. Sometimes it shows up through people, okay? And this right here, seeds, this is where things really get real because some of you aren't just dealing with your own internal resistance, you're dealing with external pressure designed to keep you from evolving. Let's call it what it is. Let's call it what it is. They didn't just hurt you. They weaponized your loyalty. They weaponized your loyalty. Yeah. Sit with that for a minute. You were consistent. You showed up. You held them down when nobody else did. That wasn't your weakness. That was your heart. But instead of honoring it, they used it. And it didn't feel like control at first, did it? Did it? No. It didn't feel like control at first. It felt like love. It felt like friendship. It felt like partnership. It felt like obligation. Maybe it felt like this is just how relationships are. Work relationships, family, friends, lovers. This is just how relationships are. But when you started growing, until you started healing, until you started setting boundaries, until you started choosing purpose over patterns. Yeah. And suddenly everything shifted. Now it's after everything I've done for you, you've changed. So you too good now. Oh, I guess loyalty don't matter anymore. Pause. Stop. Hold on. Let me explain something. That's not love or respect talking. That's control. disguised as connection. Now imagine this. Imagine this. This is a real life example. So I'm going to give you one. Imagine this. If you've been friends with someone for years, let's say you've been friends with someone for years, you've always supported them, through their job losses, their heartbreaks, their moves, the drama they had, a front row season pass to this drama, right? You're a loyal friend, you show up, you stand in the gap, but now you're healing, you're growing, you're setting boundaries, you're stepping into purpose. And suddenly, your loyalty, it becomes a weapon. They start saying things like, you act brand new. So you can do all that, but you can't do this one thing for me? Wow. After I was there for you all those times when they really weren't. Oh, you forgot where you came from. You owe me this. You don't owe anybody anything. Now your growth threatens their comfort. Yeah. When they start talking like that, for sure, your growth is threatening their comfort. Your evolution exposes their stagnation. And instead of celebrating your expansion, they guilt trip you into shrinking back into the version of you that benefited them. Okay? They don't want the new you, they want the old you that didn't have boundaries. All right? This is weaponized loyalty. That's what this is. They're using your values to keep you in a place that no longer aligns with your purpose, that no longer serves you. They're trying to keep you there. Yeah, another example. Okay, let's say a family member has always leaned heavily on you for emotional or financial support, or both. You love them, no question about that. You love them. That's why you do. You give, you do as much as you can until you can't. Even when you don't have it to give, you give it anyway. Even if you have to suffer or lack of it, you give it, okay? Because you love them. No question about that. But now you're establishing boundaries. You're making different moves. You're protecting your peace and your purpose. And suddenly, they hit you with family comes first. Mom or dad wouldn't want you to do XYZ, whatever that is, where they're concerned or the family is concerned. If it doesn't serve the family, your parents wouldn't want you to do that if it doesn't serve the family. Or you're supposed to help your own. Don't forget who was there for you when you had nothing. I remember, just real quick, I love Tina Turner. Anybody that knows me knows that I am a huge Tina Turner fan. And I remember watching her movie. I think it was just What's Love Got to Do with It. I remember watching the movie, and there was a part in the movie where when her and Ike Turner had gotten their first contract, and it was a huge contract. They had made it, so to speak. That's what you want to call it. They had made it. And they were moving to, I believe, California. And her mom, while they were packing, her mom basically whispered to her, now don't forget where you come from or who helped you get there, or something to that effect. And that is exactly what this is. when family when family puts that on you, that's weaponizing your loyalty. Okay? Yeah. Yeah, but the help, they want it at your expense. They want the help at your expense, your money, your time, your peace, your calling. Okay? And in that movie, that's what all of that was about. Her mom was weaponizing, her loyalty. Okay? That wasn't loyalty. It wasn't loyalty. And it's not, I'm telling you, it's not, if that's what you're going through, it's not loyalty, it's manipulation. Families shouldn't demand what they're not willing to respect. And why do they do this? Why do people do this? Because your loyalty gives them access. Plain and simple. Your loyalty gives them access, and access gives them control. When you change the access, they feel like they've lost control. So they use guilt to drag you back into the role you used to play. Their insecurity is the engine, and you are the fuel. Your loyalty is the fuel. Okay? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. So, how do you know your loyalty is being weaponized? Well, you feel guilty for growing. Their needs always outrank your well being. They call your boundaries disrespect. You're being disrespectful because you're setting boundaries that gives you peace. They'll bring up the past to manipulate the present, your present. Okay? Try to put something on you that you've put under, you've moved on from, and they'll bring it back so that you can remember that pain, that trauma, whatever it is. They bring it up. They bring up that past to manipulate your present. You feel indebted to them for things you didn't owe them at all. And you leave interactions drained after being around them and unsupported. Seeds, listen. I need you to understand and overstand this. Okay? Understand and overstand it. Get this in your heart and in your head. Understand and overstand that real loyalty does not punish growth. Real loyalty doesn't guilt you into shrinking. Real loyalty doesn't require you to abandon yourself to prove that you care. It doesn't punish your growth. Let me make this plain. They don't miss you. They miss the version of you they could control. They miss the version of you that they could control. They don't miss you. They miss that. Because the version of you they benefited from is not the version of you that's called to purpose. It's not that. The version of you that's called to purpose is at peace and is at freedom, has freed itself from the bondage that they had you under. Okay? They don't miss you. They miss the version of you they could control. So what do? They reach for your loyalty and try to use it like a leash around your neck. Oh, yeah. But hear me clearly, seeds. Loyalty is not ownership. Nobody gets to own you because you showed up for them. Nobody gets to claim your future because you were there or lived in their past. You don't owe your purpose to someone else's comfort. You don't owe your growth to someone else's insecurity. And you definitely don't owe your silence to people who only feel safe when you're small. No. Now, let me ask you this, seeds. Have you ever felt like your loyalty was used against you? Like the moment you started growing, somebody tried to pull you back? If that's you, don't just sit with it. Drop a comment and say, I'm taking my loyalty back. Because this right here, this is where the shift begins. This is where the shift begins. Now, I want to speak to the other side. Yeah, the other side. Let's talk about it. To the other side of this. Yeah, you know who you are. If you're listening and you realize, ooh, I might be the one clipping someone's wings. I might be the one clipping wings around here. Well, you may very well be doing that. So let me talk to you directly because something within you needs care. It needs healing. You don't need to keep people small for you to feel big, okay? Understand that. You don't need to dim somebody else's gift to validate your own. You don't need to manipulate, guilt trip, or control to matter. You don't need to do any of those things because here's the truth. Attempting to shrink someone else never grows you. Fear driven control is trauma wearing authority it never earned. If you want to stop imprisoning people with your insecurity, own your fear. Admit what scares you. Stop competing with people who aren't competing with you. Do your own healing work. Celebrate people. Celebrate people. It costs nothing and blesses everything, including you, when you do celebrate people. And ask yourself, why do I need control to feel safe? That's a huge question. And be honest about it when you ask yourself that. You don't owe anybody anything, but you owe it to yourself to know the truth so that you can free yourself. Choose growth over jealousy, always. Unlock the doors you built. Let people breathe, okay? You deserve healing too. But no healing happens while you're holding someone else hostage. It doesn't, okay? Now, how do you identify and escape fear-based control? All right? So let me wrap this up because we're all what, 27 minutes in? We're 27 minutes in, and I don't ever leave my seeds without tools, okay? So let's get practical about how to identify and escape fear-based control. Now, some signs and indications that, you're being controlled by someone else's fear are broad, okay? But I'm just going to go over a few of them so that you know where you are. And if you fit in, then you fit in, okay? And if you're not on this list, then we'll get to that in just a minute. But some of the signs and indications that you're being controlled by someone else's fear include you've never really been indecisive about anything, okay? You've never been indecisive or uncertain when making decisions, especially for yourself. But now you're second guessing yourself more when you're around this person or these people or this group, whatever it is. Now you're always second guessing yourself. Okay, that may be an indication that there's some control issues there. Okay, your wins make people feel uncomfortable. They get quiet or they find a corner to sit back and just watch or observe. Or they start an argument over nothing. That may be an indication. You may feel guilty for wanting more. Why do you feel guilty? That might be an indication. They weaponize your loyalty. We just went over that. You've changed. After everything I've done for you, if you're hearing words like that, yeah, that's an indication. Maybe sometimes they downplay your gifts or take credit for something you've done or said. Yeah. How about you feel spiritually or emotionally smaller when you're around them? Maybe they need you to stay predictable, getting home at a certain time all the time, taking the same routes, always showing up for any and every engagement. Everything is routine, never deviating, always agreeing with them. Yeah. Those are indications. Those are indications that you're being controlled by someone else's fears. If you are experiencing any of these, this is how to break free. I'm going to go over how to break free from this. So get your pen and paper, pause the video, pause the podcast, go and get your journal, your pen and paper, and write these things down because it's important that you know and you understand. Break free from this prison that they've gotten you into or that you allowed yourself to get into. All right? Step 1, name what's happening. Call that prison what it is. Maybe it's on this list that I just gave you. Maybe it's not. Okay? Whatever it is, you know what's causing you to shrink, to feel dread or dismay or anxiety, emotionally smaller. You know what that is, so name it. Okay? Step number 1, name what's happening. Step 2, stop negotiating your worth. And this means you don't lower your standards, over explain, your value, or accept less just to be accepted in a relationship, in a group, on a job, whatever it is. Don't devalue yourself. Your worth isn't up for debate, discount, or approval. When you stop negotiating it, you make decisions that align with who you are, not what keeps others comfortable. Step 3, create distance. Create some distance, emotional, spiritual, physical. Yeah, create some distance in those areas. Step back in the ways that protect your peace. Guard what you share. Okay, reconnect with your truth and values. And when needed, limit the time or access they have to you. Distance isn't rejection, people. Distance is protection and clarity. Okay? Distance yourself when you need to. When you need clarity and protection from the toxicity, distance yourself. Reconnect with your gifts daily. Step 4, reconnect with your gifts daily. And I'm going to give you some steps on this. First, you name them, okay? Write down your top 3 gifts. What comes naturally, okay? What others thank you for. You know what they are. And then step 2, use one of them on purpose. Use one on purpose. Do one small action each day that uses a gift. Write, speak, create, help, solve something, whatever it is. Use one on purpose every day. Step 3, block 15 minutes. Set aside 15 minutes a day. Protect a short, non-negotiable window to practice or build on that purpose. Okay? And then step 4, track the impact. Note how it made you feel and who it helped, because this reinforces your alignment. And then lastly, reduce the noise. Oh, reduce the noise. Limit the voices that make you doubt or compare. Protect your focus. Okay? Consistency, intensity, a little every day. A little bit of those things every day keeps your gifts alive and aligned. Okay? So do those 5 steps to reconnect with your gifts on a daily basis. Okay? And then step 4, step 5, what makes us free? Okay? How to break free. Step 5, get around people who are allergic to shrinking. All right, find your tribe. That's what I call it, finding your tribe. Find your tribe. Surround yourself with people who challenge your growth, who celebrate your expansion and refuse to let you play small. Okay, find your tribe. Find those people, the people that are allergic to shrinking. I love it. And then lastly, step 6, return to God for identity. Fear loses power when truth becomes your source. So stay connected to source. Pray, meditate if that's what your thing is, or reflect, so your gifts stay grounded in purpose and not pressure. All right? Return to source. Stay connected to source. All right? Take one bold step toward purpose. Act on what you've been delaying. Send that email, make the call, apply for the job or apply for the loan, whatever it is, post, pitch. Do one thing you've been overthinking. All right? Share your gift. Share it publicly. That's huge. Share your gift publicly. So your purpose moves from private to active. All right? That's a big thing. Action kills fear every single time. I went through this one myself. I've been putting off my gift since 2012, 2014. Oh yeah, it's been a while. And then finally, I just decided, it's time. It's time to break free. It's time to operate in my purpose. So I began to align myself. And once I did, yeah, I lost a lot of people. A lot of people fell off. They had to. Some people can't go. You love them all and you want them all there, but everybody can't go. And it's okay. It doesn't mean you don't love them. It just means that they don't fit into this season of your life, and it's okay because they need to find their purpose. All right? So now, seeds, this is my final word, okay? Fear is loud, but purpose is patient. Fear wants you caged. Purpose wants you crowned. Fear wants you silent. Purpose wants you seen. Fear wants you stagnant. Purpose wants you surrendered. And I'm going to replace that word fear so it makes more sense or so it hits emotionally. Let's try anxiety. Anxiety is loud, all right? Dread is loud, but purpose is patient. Anxiety wants you caged. Dread wants you caged. Dismay wants you caged, but purpose wants you crowned, all right? Anxiety wants you silent. Dread wants you silent. Purpose wants you seen. Anxiety wants you stagnant. Dismay wants you stagnant. All right? Dread wants you stagnant. Purpose wants you surrendered. And God wants you free. Yeah, God wants you free. So today, unlock the doors. Unlock the doors you walked into. Return the keys to the people who tried to hold them. And step out. Not timid, not apologetic, but aligned. All right, if this hit you, don't keep it to yourself. Please don't keep it to yourself. Drop a comment or share this episode, okay? Share it. And say in the comments, I'm taking my loyalty back. Because you know what? You weren't born to live in anyone's shadows. You were born to cast your own light. Your own light. Remember that. Own it. Stand in it. Okay? I love you, seeds. Stay aligned, stay free, stay watered. Until next time, live a better way.